Why do I lose motivation so fast? Some people are not lazy. They are emotionally exhausted from constantly becoming someone just to survive. You started excited, inspired, certain this time will be different. You make plans, set goals, feel a sudden wave of energy. And then a few days later, something disappears. The motivation fades. The excitement dies. Your mind gets heavy again. Suddenly, even small tasks feel exhausting. And the painful part is, you genuinely wanted to change. So now you secretly wonder, what is wrong with me? Dear friend, some people live inside a cycle nobody else sees. One night they feel powerful. They watch videos, write goals, imagine a new future, promise themselves they are finally changing. For a moment, they feel alive again. But then reality returns. The morning comes, the energy disappears. The emotional heaviness returns quietly. So they procrastinate. They delay things. They avoid starting. And slowly, they begin hating themselves for not being consistent. They call themselves lazy, undisciplined, unfocused. But deep inside, they are not struggling with effort. They are struggling with emotional depletion. Because it is difficult to stay motivated when your nervous system is already overwhelmed trying to survive daily life. Some people are waking tired before the day even begins. Not physically, emotionally. And eventually, motivation becomes harder to access when survival mode becomes your normal state. But maybe motivation was never meant to carry your whole life. That is the deepest truth people rarely talk about. Motivation is emotional energy, and emotional energy rises and falls constantly. So when people build their entire future on temporary feelings, they collapse every time those feelings disappear. And many people are not actually unmotivated. They are disconnected from themselves. Because when a person keeps abandoning their own emotional needs, their inner world eventually stops cooperating. Many people think motivation disappears randomly. But if you watch closely, motivation often dies right after fear appears. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough, fear of trying hard and still losing. So the mind quietly pulls away from action to avoid emotional pain. And then people mistake emotional self-protection for laziness. That is why some people constantly consume inspiration, but rarely move. They love imagining transformation, because imagination feels safer than risk. And every unfinished goal slowly becomes emotional evidence against themselves, until eventually they stop trusting their own promises. Not because they are weak, but because disappointment exhausted their identity. Dear friend, ancient wisdom often compared human energy to fire. A fire cannot burn continuously without being protected and refueled. And many people today are trying to force themselves forward while emotionally starving inside. So they blame themselves for lacking motivation, while ignoring the emotional exhaustion draining them underneath. Even nature understands cycles. Trees do not bloom every season. Rivers do not rush endlessly. Everything living requires restoration. The real reason motivation disappears so quickly is because many people are trying to build a future with an identity that secretly feels emotionally defeated. They want success, but deep inside, they no longer believe in their own consistency. So every new beginning carries hidden emotional tension. What if I fail again? And the nervous system remembers every unfinished attempt, every abandoned dream, every moment they disappoint themselves, until eventually starting something new feels emotionally dangerous. My dear friend, maybe the problem was never that you lack motivation. Maybe you lost connection with the part of yourself that believe your effort mattered. Because human beings can survive difficulty, but repeated hopelessness slowly drains the soul. That is why this scripture feels deeply human. Galatians 6:9, it says, "Let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." Not because life is easy, but because exhaustion can make people quit moments before transformation begins. And sometimes the greatest battle is continuing after disappointment. Dear friend, here is the full healing experience. The solution, listen carefully. Tonight, write down 3 goals you abandoned. Not to shame yourself, to look at them honestly. Then, beside each one, write, what emotion made me stop? Not the excuse, the emotion. Is it fear? Is it embarrassment? Is it perfectionism? Is it emotional exhaustion? Is it loneliness? Because the moment you identify emotional force behind your inconsistency, you stop seeing yourself as lazy. And you finally see the invisible wound interrupting your momentum. That realization changes the relationship you have with yourself. Listen, a plant placed in darkness may stop growing, not because it hates growing, but because it lacks what needs to stay alive. Human beings are similar. When the inner world lacks hope, rest, meaning, or emotional safety. Motivation slowly withers quietly. So if you have been losing motivation lately, maybe you do not need more self-hatred. Maybe you need honesty. Maybe your soul has been exhausted for longer than people realize. And maybe healing begins the moment you stop calling yourself lazy for wounds you never properly understood. Because some people are not failing from lack of potential. They are collapsing from invisible emotional weight. My dear friend, not every person who stopped moving lost their dream. Some simply became tired of carrying disappointment alone. So if your fire has been weak lately, do not confuse temporary exhaustion with permanent failure. Even dying embers can burn again when given air. My dear friend, what part of this felt connected to your life? Do you think your motivation disappeared? Or did emotional exhaustion slowly replace it? And what emotion do you think has been silently stopping you from becoming who you want to be? Share your experience in the comments, my dear, so someone can pick an inspiration from. Thanks so much for joining me. I am TheZipporah.